I was considering today, I just popped into my mind the essence pace of attention. And if my attention is captured, one of the ways that I know that is that I start bumping into things because I'm not right in my attention. I'm even just slightly out of in front of my attention. And that's actually how I fell off of my bicycle 8 years ago, is that my attention was just slightly ahead and my tire turned, boom, over I went. And it can happen very quickly. Life changes. When you're not in your essence pace, you are much more vulnerable to other kinds of influences coming in. So I wanted to play with you just as you're shifting your attention. The basic loop of attention, the loop of awareness, is how you shift from inside you to outside you. It's really that simple. And one of the things that I notice when I'm not really in my attention is I'm usually outside of me, kind of looking in at me. So I'd like you to let yourself just shift your attention. So like I'm shifting right outside this window is a beautiful plumeria that we've had for over 25 years, moved from another place. And so when I look at it, I have this sense of, kind of a landing. And then when I come back inside, when you come back inside, do you have a sense of landing, or do you jump off, or do you kind of do a butterfly? We have dragonflies around here and they kind of go. So what's the style and the pace of how you shift your attention? Let yourself just play with that for a little bit so you get a sense of how do you experience it? What do you feel when you're right in your attention? And how can you deliberately take yourself outside of your attention? What are your favorite ways of doing that? So for me, it's going out and it's going ahead. So I combine speed with going out. So I get kind of adrenalized and I'm thinking, oh, what am I supposed to do next? Oh, and I forgot no. And in my own body, I experience more up. It's a kind of a flee up and a little bit forward. And there's a little bit of grippiness on it, like, I'm going to miss something. I think one of the reasons I get speedy is that my fear is I'm going to miss something and then I'm going to get in trouble. So I'd like you to just follow the scenario of when you take yourself out with your speed. I predict that it's usually by getting faster. So notice what happens when you're like shifting your attention faster, like, oh, did I forget something? Oh, and then notice how you experience that when you're faster than is really essential for your body. And one thing that happens for me also is I don't breathe as much and I don't move as much. So your breathing, your moving, and your attention really weave together. And when you're finding yourself not in your attention, what's the most effective way for you to come back into your essence pace? So when we're learning about essence pace, we speed up and we slow down. So generally, I'm imagining that with your attention, you don't slow down, you simply speed up, because that's what's going on in the environment, is just speed up, see if you can keep up with it. Things are chasing you, something's going to get you. So it's combined fear and speed. And so I also find myself coming way up in my body and sort of forgetting my belly and my feet. So let yourself now play with shifting your attention much more with a kind of oozy quality, letting yourself find a pleasant way to slow down your attention. Like you could think of it as like slow motion with the ball and noticing that shifting out, or landing. Like I sometimes think of a jellyfish when I want to slow my attention down. I use the image of a jellyfish and letting my attention move in that way so that I can both take myself with me And I can also let my attention land. And then when my attention, I bring it back to me, how do I want to settle in me? And letting my attention kind of seep in, land. So when I slow down, I access more of this kind of movement rather than this kind of movement. And so you can let yourself play with, I like to sometimes use my hands and arms to let me know what I'm doing. So if you're playing with your attention and you're speeding it up, let your hands reflect that, because it'll give you a much more vivid sense of what you're actually doing and not let you get away with anything. So, because often we can trick ourselves, well, I'll just do this real quickly and then I'll head out the door. That was one of my patterns, is I'd be going from here to there and then I just grab one more thing. Oh, I can do one more thing before I get there. And that's often when I would spill things or drop things or forget things. So let yourself play with getting really fast with your attention and then getting really slow with your attention, so that you can play with, what's the pace of shifting my attention that really promotes and supports the most presence. So here I am and here you are, and then I'm open to what wants to happen next, rather than being, if I'm caught with my attention, I'm actually not really here. So what are the signals that let you know that you're actually here? Here I am. We do a here I am, but when you're not here in this group, which is most of the time, how do you know here I am? For me, I can feel my breath, and there's almost my breath kind of goes, oh, thank you. Ah, there's a little bit of a ah. And when that happens, I sometimes like to exaggerate it. It kind of a, whew. And then I have that big opening of the next breath. And it's a refreshing shift of attention rather than being on the treadmill. So again, for making shifts in a very rapidly changing world, your attention is your very best friend. And when you go, oh, attention, how can I play with you today? In a way that allows me to respond most effectively, to this awesome, someone was describing today that our administration is a Mad Max administration. I said, yes, that's it. That's how, when you're in a Mad Max time, yes, how can you create safety? So when I move at my essence pace, I literally am generating safety, because I'm presencing myself. I'm here. I'm aware of what's going on around me. And I've experienced that I also create safety for those around me. When I'm in my essence pace, it is contagious. We often think of fear being contagious, which it is, and presence, I found, is even more contagious. And we can generate that. We don't need to wait for somebody to give it to us, because if you're waiting for that, good luck. so, so playing with basically speeding up and slowing down, and then noticing when you slow down, which I find really be the key, what in you is really asking for attention, is really wanting to have your presence. And when you do that, when I do that, it really is a portal to more presence spreading through my body. So that one step at a time, that letting yourself speed up and slow down with your attention can really cascade out into a sense of renewing your presence. So that's what I wanted to share with you. And then there's another key to your presence that's on the card today that I want to share with you. So if Michelle, you could put that up. So letting your attention dive into the collage, and you can play with your essence pace with diving into the collage and then back into you, and you can play with speeding up and slowing down and noticing what you notice, And when you bring your attention back to you, how are you receiving the picture in your body? And any images from anything else that come to you when you're looking at the collage. And as you're doing that, let me read you the sentence and the question from here. I follow my body signals that let me know I don't want to make a particular agreement. I follow my body signals that let me know I don't want to make a particular agreement. And then the question is, how can I easily say no to agreements I do not want to make? Whoa, that's this is a biggie, what I call a biggie. Um, really, all the cards are biggies, but this one is a particular biggie. So I'm also noticing what I'm thinking of as both the Wicked Witch of the West and the ruby shoes that are underneath the big mouth going ah, or whatever. If you were to be making the sound coming out of this particular, what sound would you be making? So let yourself just play with that for a little bit. What, when you have that sense of is it no, or is it whoa, or is it what sound do you make when you're considering whether you want to keep an agreement or not? So the yellow brick road down there, and the flowers that were in the field that they all lay down in and fell asleep, the poppies. So let's come on back to the big group. I find that saying no for most people is extremely challenging. And I'm noticing here, how can I easily say no? So that in itself is something to play with. How can you easily say no? So just let yourself just practice no, no, no. And then notice what you add to it. Because almost always we just don't leave it at no. No, because I just didn't have time for it, or no, because I didn't understand the drive. So the no because. So notice your no because. And when I do a because, it shuts down the nozzle of my no. The flow of energy that comes from declaring yourself as a sovereign entity, no. And when I was able to finally just say no, not, and with not a lot of excuses, or explanations, I got a lot more powerful in my decision making, in the clarity of my own creativity. So saying no, excuse me, I think I have a little something out here in the studio. I'm going to bring out an air cleaner because I've noticed that I have out here, I have more coughing. So something out here to say no to. So I'm going to be studying that. So you're saying no. What happens to your consideration of the other person when you say no? So a lot of us don't say no because the other person is not going to like it. The other person is not going to like me. I have to explain to them because I can't just say no because they've asked, and I have to because they've asked, or I should because I owe them, or, all of this stuff that comes up that gets in the way of your body signals. So here, in the first sentence, I follow my body signals that let me know I don't want to make a particular agreement. Do you know what those signals are? Do you know what your no signals are from your body? So when I was reading that, I was actually sort of reviewing what are mine. And the first, if I were to make a sound, it's kind of like a, it's a, it feels like a, I got a couple of my necklaces tangled up. It's kind of like that. It's kind of a, and it's almost a little growly, but it's also a little complaining, like, it's almost like I don't want to, but I'm not saying that. I mean, so that's one of my signals. But sometimes it's just an absolute, like the door shuts, bam. It's very clear. It's a no. So I experience a range of my body signals. And the really one of the only times I've gotten into trouble is when I've overridden those signals. And you might review your life about you really wanted to say no, but you said yes. And then this whole snowball of stuff happened. And what would happen if you were willing to simply say no and then wait? So wait for something else to come up in you, or with your loop of awareness, wait for something to come up in the other person. But simply saying no, and I forget, I don't know if somebody said, I don't know if somebody said it, but no is a complete sentence. And if you don't let yourself have that, that's something I really encourage you to let yourself own. It's just no. And you can play with not so important things, not so important agreements first, rather than jumping into like, do you want to get married, or do you want to get divorced, or you want to move, or shall we get rid of the kids? So the all of the big decisions may not be quite as instant for you. And liberating yourself from no, it really clarifies the entanglements that we get into when we say yes, when our body signals are saying no. So one of the ways that people do say no is by then forgetting, getting sick, putting down the schedule wrong. So take a look at your agreements that haven't worked out, or where there's been a big struggle or a big kerfuffle, and I guarantee you that somewhere along the line there, you said yes when your body signals were saying no. And when you say no, it opens up the possibility of a whole nother point of view, a whole nother entry, a whole nother agreement. So it may be no, not this, and yes to something else. But if you don't say no, no is really a gateway to yes. And I don't think many people experience that when you really have the clarity about what's no for you, then there's just this whole world of opening up to what your yes is. So this is not something I expect you to master in a week, although when I come back next week, I'm going to be interested in the report. How have you been doing? But and also, whenever I talk about agreements, I realize that hardly anybody considers agreements. And I really consider it, and we consider it, the cornerstone of our integrity. And it's really the gateway. I call it the canary in the coal mine. So if your agreements are working, everything else will be working. If there's a kerfuffle in your agreements, it's going to be reflected in how you're feeling, your emotional transparency, your communication, your responsibility. So getting really sort of warrior-like with your agreements is one of the best ways to support yourself right now, because your agreements are your structure. If you're relying on other people, things are pretty wobbly right now, but you can be in charge of your own agreements. Here's what I want. Here's what I don't want. I want to change this agreement. Here's what I'd really like to do with you, but I'm feeling scared that you don't want to do this. So playing with your agreements, it has tremendous benefit in all kinds of ways. So wanted to share that with you. And then let me just go to my Presence Connect Play. And if you all don't have your Presence Connect Play app, please get it, because it's something that you can use every day to support what we're doing here and to support you in shifting out of the drama triangle, of the hero, victim, villain, into Presence Connect Play. It's way more fun, in my opinion, and in my experience. All right, so presence. Oh, I love this. Presence today is let your whole self turn toward what's happening. So this is really the essence of what we call facing in FACT, is turning toward what is happening. And so for a minute, let yourself, like something that might be happening in your life today that, sort of over here, and I'd like you to turn toward it and then play with the ways that you turn away from, instead of turning toward. So turning toward and then turn, oh gosh, I forgot, or turning toward and, oh, I don't like that, and turning away. So letting yourself actually, what would it be like to fully turn toward? Like, what's the next thing that you're going to be up to after you get off of this call? And take a moment to let yourself turn toward that. And noticing, like I noticed when I first turned toward, the first thing that happened was I held my breath. And so I go, oh, I'm wondering if I maybe have some fear about that. Oh, yeah, I don't quite. And so it allows me to then include myself rather than just taking myself from place to place and I'm not really there. So let your whole self turn toward what's happening. That's really the key move. And I think it's the hardest for most people. Facing is the hardest. Like this is really going on. And when I really turn toward, then I'm able to act and to respond. But if I never turn toward, I'm in that limbo state, which is actually dangerous. If I'm turning toward and I'm on the road and I'm not really turning toward where I'm going, I become very dangerous. But we think if I'm not in a car, I can just do that all the time. I can be fooling around with my attention. But when I'm actually turning toward, boy, that's really the step toward our own personal power, and choice in our days. So connect says reflect feelings. When we're saying reflect feelings, it's really turning the mirror toward the other, reflecting. As I've had when I've been working with people, even like, meeting somebody or I'm having a conversation and as I notice, I'll say something like, oh, I just noticed in me, I felt a little kind of drooping. And then I looked over at you and then I said, gosh, looks like she has some feelings going on. Or, I just heard that sigh and I was wondering if there's some sadness going on. So reflecting feelings, even if you don't say it, if you're experiencing it and you're letting your loop of awareness turn to the other person, you are reflecting it. And I found that's very powerful because sometimes people are so unfamiliar with their feelings or uncomfortable with their feelings that if you talk about it, they're going to run away. But if you're letting yourself experience your feelings and then you're noticing them and appreciating their feelings, that's also reflecting feelings. It doesn't have to come through your mouth. It can come through your presence and definitely through your loop of awareness. I've been able to reflect feelings over distance, like on Zoom, because I can see, you can experience, and especially because the pixels are so much better now that Zoom can carry energy. And so I can actually reflect feelings with my loop of awareness and presence with somebody, even though we're not in the same room. And that's something that I really invite you to play with because I think we're going to be, traveling less and less and being able to really be together in person, probably less and less. And so I'm grateful for our virtual ways of being together. And I want to take advantage of those and invite you to also. Oh, play. This is interesting. I wouldn't think of play being together with this particular invitation. Let go. Let go of an idea, a thought, an issue. How is that play? How is that not just dropping the ball? How is letting go play? But just consider if you have a whole bundle of things, how are you going to be able to play if you're not available? So so let yourself just choose something that you've been kind of grinding on for a little bit, or you've been, and let's just play with the fundamental letting go. Like you can have it as if you were holding a pen and then just let go. And notice when you let go, for me, when I let go, there's an in-breath that comes, a space for what's next. So a let go, I consider a kind of a toss. I'm letting go. So things in your life that you've been stacking up and carrying, and it's okay, I got it, and taking too much responsibility, those would be great to just let go. It's kind of like it's another version of no. It's just no, letting go, no. And then the breeziness, you don't have to give a long explanation. It's just letting go. The person in my life who's a master of that is Gay. Gay is the world champion of letting go. He can just with, when he starts to let go, boof, it's gone. It's, like sometimes I brought out a book the other day. I said, I forgot that you wrote that. And he said, yeah, I forgot completely that I wrote that. Because once we would get his a box of his new book would be arriving, and he'd open the box and go, oh, great. And then off to something else. He'd already completely let go of it. And because of that, the stream of creativity keeps flowing, rather than stacking up everything and carrying it around. It's kind of like Marley's ghost in Scrooge, where he's carrying all of his chains of his things that he never let go of through eternity. So my invitation for you is to let your whole self turn toward, reflect feelings, and let go, and let that be in service of your essence pace with your attention. So lots to play with during this week. And I want to again thank you for being in community. We're in our 5th year of doing this, which is very hard for me to believe, but somebody was just saying, I think Barry was just saying it's almost August. And what came up for me is, oh no, it's almost Christmas. so we're a slide down now toward. So if you're in that slide, you can change your experience by changing your pace. So I invite you to let yourself play with those things this week, and let yourself stay and play and converse as long as you like. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time. All right. Love to you.